Hi everybody and welcome to the sixth video in the series TensorFlow Basics with Hemant, and that's myself. In the earlier videos we discussed various basic tools, topics like tensors, variables, eager execution, using gradient tape to set up training loop. We also discussed tf.module and subclassing it to create models and layers and so on. In this video, that is the sixth video of the series, we'll explore a few basic questions around TensorFlow high-level API Keras. So in specific, we will discuss what is Keras in the first place and why is it so popular, what are the basic ways to use Keras, how does Keras simplify machine learning workflow, how can we extend Keras, and what are the Keras callbacks and how we can utilize them. So let's get started, folks. So Keras is basically a high-level API of TensorFlow 2. So in the earlier videos we have discussed like how we can subclass tf.module to create layers and models. We also saw that layers typically are meant to do specific type of calculations, versus model is meant to do end-to-end machine learning steps, that is process data, train, evaluate and predict. And it can be done using the TensorFlow operations and just plain Python code. But for the sake of reusability and simplicity, TensorFlow has adopted Keras as a higher level API to do most of the common machine learning steps easily. In fact, Keras also subclasses tf.module to create layers and model, but adds on a lot of convenience methods. So Keras is built on a few basic principles. So number one principle is it tries to minimize the number of user actions required for common use cases, say something like training a model, evaluating a model, getting predictions from the model, right? So the principle there is the Keras API is made for humans and not for machines actually. And second principle is Keras follows the principle of progressive disclosure of complexity. That means if you want to extend Keras, you should be able to do with the least amount of effort and as much as that is exactly needed. So that means if you want to extend something, it should not happen that you have to rewrite the whole module or something of that sort. You should be able to modify just a few lines of code and you should be done. But at the same time, if you really want to dig deeper and make more and more changes, even that should be possible. So the core data structures of Keras are layers and models. Okay, so the way that we use Keras actually is typically through two different type of models. One is the sequential model, which is a linear stack of layers, and for more complex architectures, that means non-linear kind of model structures, or wherever we have more inputs and outputs, then in that case we can use the Keras functional API also. Okay, so that allows us to build arbitrary graphs of layers. Okay, and the third way is to subclass the layers and models, which the layer and the model classes which are provided in the Keras, and the model and the Keras of the Keras model and the layer itself is extended from tf.module itself. Okay, so let's kind of jump in and try to see what the sequential model and functional API is all about. Okay, so a sequential model is appropriate for a plain stack of layers where each layer has exactly one input tensor and one output tensor. Okay, so in this particular case, you can see that there is an input layer, there is an output layer, there are multiple hidden layers in between, but each one of them has exactly one input and one output. Okay, so how do we actually create this sequential model in Keras? So let's quickly take a look at the imports which are required. So the first import that is required is the Keras, so that we import from the TensorFlow. Just to give a little bit of history here, the version for the version 1, actually Keras was an independent kind of a library, but in the TensorFlow 2 actually Keras is rolled into the TensorFlow itself. So that's why you see this import from TensorFlow import Keras, and then we can import the layers also. Now there are two ways to create those sequential models. So one is basically to pass the list of the layers, as you can see here, and the second way is to basically create an empty model and then use model.api model.add API to add different layers. Okay. Now let's say if you have created a model as we saw it in the last page. So say for example, if we created a model and added layers to it, the model is not built in that in this while when we did all those steps. Okay, so only when the input is created and basically passed to a model, that is when the weights are created. So before that, if we do something like model.weights, so if you are trying to get weights of the model, or if you're trying to do the summary of the model, then that is not going to work. Okay, so what we have to do, we have to create an input and we have to give it to a model. And why that is required? Because unless we know the shape of the input, it is not able to decide the shape of the weight of the first layer and subsequent layers also. Okay, so that is why the input needs to be given. Okay, so once the input is given, we can see the model summary and we can see the output shape of each and every layer. So as you can see, in this particular case we had 2 outputs here, 3 outputs here, 4 outputs here, and that is what we see here, 2, 3 and 4. And what if we wanted to basically get some kind of a model summary, or we didn't know the input shape in advance? Then what we can do is actually we can declare we can create an input object keras.input, and we can declare its shape to an extent that is known to us, and we can give a batch size also if that is if that is known. Otherwise we can just give none, and that is sufficient. Since we are giving the input shape, the weights can be created in that particular case, and we will be able to see the model summary in this particular case. Okay, now just note that this batch size is in addition to what we are giving as a shape actually. So shape is only in this particular case, if it is 4 comma, it means that shape is like it indicates that the expected input will be batches of 4-dimensional vector. Okay, 4-dimensional vector, elements of this tuple. So not exactly 4-dimensional vector, it's a vector with 4 elements. That is what I mean by 4-dimensional vector. Okay, so going forward, sequential models are good if you can do with a single stack of layers and one input and one output layer. But what if we need to give multiple inputs and possibly have multiple outputs also? In that we may also need multiple stacks of layer in a non-linear topology to realize some models. Like we can have multiple inputs and multiple inputs getting processed by a separate stack of layers, and then we might have to merge those two outputs, etc. Right? So if you have to build an arbitrarily graph, then that is the case where we have to use the Keras functional API. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to begin with the creation of an input node. So here is how we can create that input node, and then we can create another layer and pass this input to the created layer. Okay, so that way we get another output, and that another output we can use as an input to the another layer. Okay, so we get this, we create this layer, pass this input, this output to this next layer, and so on actually. Okay, so finally, in order to create a model, what we have to do is we say keras.model, and then we have to declare our input and output. So basically keras.model is going to traverse this path from output to input and going to create a model from it. Okay, and not only that, we can also do the plot of a particular model. That means we can see that model visually, and as seen in this particular slide, here are a few examples of the kind of the models that we can create with a functional API. So in the first case, we have a single input, but then we are creating two separate stack of layers. So one is this path here, and second is this stack of layers, and the single input is being processed in different ways. So for example, we might have different filter sizes into the two convolutional layers here. Okay, so we apply different filters here, and then we combine the output and add some dense layers on top of it here, right? In the second case, we have two different versions of the images, and they are processed by the convolutional layers here, and then finally going forward, we combine them using the concatenate and then process it further to the dense layers. So the key thing to take away from here is we can create nonlinear topologies which can take multiple inputs, which can have multiple outputs using the functional API. And as you have seen earlier, it is not very difficult. We just have to create an input and then pass it to another layer. You get an output. That output is something that you use an input to a different layer. Okay, so it is very easy to use, but it is very powerful at the same time. Okay, now so far we discussed that Keras model can be built using sequential or functional API, right? Now models built using both of these APIs have out-of-the-box methods that help us compile, train and validate and evaluate a model, and also predict outcomes using new data. Okay, so model also has methods to save and load back the weights as well. Okay, so more specifically, let's try to see how does the built-in method save a lot of work for us as a developer. Okay, so the first method that we have is model.compile. Okay, so model.compile takes this optimizer as an input. It takes the loss function, it takes metrics. Okay, now optimizer, as you know, it is going to be used while training the model. Loss function also we are going to use while training the model. Metrics we are going to use to log certain details while we are training, right? We want to capture a certain metric during the training, right? Now, so that is a first method, out of the box method, that the model, Keras model, provides us. The second method that we have is model.fit. Okay, so this is the method which actually sets up a training loop and also performs a training on the given data. So what are the inputs to it? We have this input data here, we have the labels here, we have batch size, the number of epochs that we want to run, and we can pass in the validation data also. So in this particular case, we have pre-created the validation data, and that is what we are declaring it here. Okay, and then after that, in addition to creating the validation data outside here, we can also declare a validation split in the model.fit itself. Okay, so in this particular case, we are just giving the training data here, and we are saying that the validation split is 0.2. That means it is going to use 80% of the data for training and 20% of the data for validation. Here, as you note, we had created this validation data ourselves and fed it over here. Here we are just giving the training data and we are specifying the validation split here. Okay. Third method, model.evaluate. Okay, and for the evaluation purpose, we give the test data, right? So validation data, as you know, is separate from a test data. Now we evaluate a model after the model is trained. Okay, validation happens during the training itself. During the model fit, the evaluation is going to happen after the model is trained using model.fit. Okay, and then the last method, model.predict, right? So we have to give a new piece of data and we can get a prediction out of it. So these four methods, compile, fit, evaluate and predict, actually they save us a lot of coding, because as you can see in the model.fit, it saves us creating batches, creating the loops for the epochs, splitting the validation data, and so on. All these things are taken care for us. So that is why people really like Keras, because it saves them a lot of coding effort and it really simplifies the number of the steps to create your machine learning workflow. Now, how does the built-in methods work with the functional API and with multiple inputs and outputs? So in this particular case, as you can see, there are multiple inputs and then there are multiple outputs also. So how do we give the multiple input? When we are doing the model.fit, we can give it as a list of data. So here this particular data, image input and time series input, both are given as list, and even the labels are given as a list in this particular case. Okay, and during the compilation we can declare the different loss functions for different outputs. So in this particular case we are using the mean squared error for the score output. For the class output we are using the categorical cross entropy. Okay, so similarly we can also declare multiple different metrics for different outputs. So here we have some metrics defined for the score output, some other metrics for class output. Okay, so it's pretty similar, it's just that we have to declare a few kind of lists because there are multiple inputs and outputs. Here we will digress a little bit into the Keras callbacks. We had a discussion about the TensorFlow or TensorBoard callback earlier, but here we will discuss two different callbacks. So one of the callbacks is early stopping, and the reason for discussing the callbacks is because it is part of the model.fit. Okay, and we will see that in the notebook how we can use the callback in the during the model.fit. Okay, now in this case also you can see we create a callback here, and then in the model.fit we say callbacks is equal to callbacks, and we can give a list of the callbacks also. Okay, now coming to the early stopping, see when we are training, and if the loss is not decreasing, validation loss is not decreasing beyond a point, then it is a good idea to stop the training, because it's not going anywhere. We are just wasting our time and money, right? So early stopping can be used for that. So we can specify the minimum delta. We monitor the validation loss, we specify the minimum delta. Minimum delta is the minimum amount of the change that we want to happen. If the change is not happening for, say, for example, 2 epochs or 3 epochs, whatever we want, we can stop the training. Okay, so that is the first callback. that I wanted to kind of discuss. Second callback that I wanted to discuss was the model checkpoint. Okay, so during the training, if you want to save the weights, okay, because the training can fail, right? And if you are not saved anything, we are going to lose the whole work, the whole time actually. If we save the checkpoints at the regular interval, then we can at least fall back to the last one. Okay, so that's why this model checkpoint callback is useful. Okay, so the same thing here, we create a callback and just use that callback during the model.fit. Okay, and the TensorFlow or TensorBoard callback we had already discussed earlier, so I'm not going to discuss again. This callback is used to basically collect the data to be visualized into the TensorBoard. Okay, now we also discussed that model.fit is built to cater to most common training scenarios. But what if we wanted to have some specific needs, but we still want to have the convenience of the model.fit method. So we want to use the model.fit method, but we also want to change it. Okay, so in that case, what we can do is, or rather what Keras allows, following its policy of allowing us to modify in the simple steps, is we can override the train underscore step function. Okay, so this is the function which is called by the dot fit method for every batch of data. Okay, so if we override this particular function, we can make the changes into the dot fit method. Okay, and the key thing to take away from this is, since we are using the Keras dot model, um, we can access the loss function using self.compiled underscore loss. We can use the optimizer self.optimizer dot apply gradients, and then we can also access the trainable variables using self.trainable underscore variables. Okay, we can use even the self.compiled metrics also, because they're all part of the model. So that's a good thing. We don't have to we can reuse whatever is already there in the model. Okay, so that's a big convenience for us. But what if we wanted to take a charge of the whole training loop completely? Okay, that means we had earlier seen that, right, in the dot fit method. The fit method takes care of batching, it takes care of splitting the data as a validation data, uh, etc. Right? But if we did not want it, if we do not want it, and if we want to create our own training loop, even we can do that. What we have to do is we have to create a model, we have to create an optimizer, create a loss function, and then set up a loop for epochs. Right, for each epoch we'll have to iterate through the batches of the data. We'll have to do the loss calculation, gradient calculation, and update the weights actually, and we can also log the matrix also, right? So this is what you see here. We are creating the optimizer and the loss function here, and this is how the code is going to look like. So the outer loop for loop is for iterating through the epochs, the inner for loop is for iterating through the batches of the data set, and then for each batch of data we are doing the loss calculation here, so loss value as you can see here, and then we are basically calculating the gradients using the tape.gradient method here, and those calculated gradients we are applying it to the optimizer dot apply gradients, and then we can log some metrics as well, right? So before we actually discuss the summary of this particular session, let's go to the notebooks and see how does this whole thing look like in practice. So coming back to the sequential model, so let's get started with the imports. So as you can see, we are importing Keras here. And here we are creating a sequential model. So Keras.sequential, and we are creating layers here, right? So different layers we are creating a list of the layers here, and then we are passing that list to the Keras.sequential model. And then once the model is created, what we do is we create an input here, and we pass that input to the model, and we get an output from it. Okay, so this is what we got here. Okay, now once we have created a model, we can also access its weights. What are the different weights, right? So there is, since there are three different layers here, you will see that there are three. We have a kernel here for the first layer, and then we have a bias for it, then kernel for the second one, bias for the second one, kernel for the third one, and the bias for the third one. Okay, so that is what the model weights are going to look like. Okay, and this is similar to basically going layer by layer. So we create a layer, and we create a second layer and the third layer here, and then we can go layer by layer also. So whatever we see here, the sequential model here, it is same as basically giving an input to a layer 1 and then output to a layer 2, the output of layer 1 x2 as input to the layer 2, and then the output of layer 2 as an input to the layer 3, and then we get the final output here. So it's the same thing, but the thing to note here is we are giving one input at a time, and we are getting one output at a time here. Okay, so the same thing that we saw discussed earlier, we can give a list and we can create a model out of it. We can also see the layers, what all layers are there in the model. Here we are creating another model via the add method. We are using the add method here. Earlier we had used a list of the layers. Now we are adding the layers. So we create an empty model and add the layers one by one, and we see the layers. It is the same, right? So we get the same layers here. We can remove the layers also by using model.pop, and after removing, you will see that there are two layers left. Now the thing is, let's say if we create a model like this, okay, and let's try to see if we get anything. So there is nothing in the layers not weight, so the weights are not initialized. Even the model is created, the weights are not created. For that, what we have to do, we have to create an input and then give that as an input. Okay, and then we can check if we got a weight or not. The weights got initialized only when we give the input, because unless the input shape is known, the weights cannot be created. Okay, the same thing here. This we did for a layer, this we are doing it for the model. So here you see we created a model and then we are trying to access the weights, but we cannot get those because those are not defined. So what you have to do, we have to give an input, and then we can print our model summary. Okay, now what if we didn't want to or didn't have the input earlier? We can just declare the shape. Okay, so here we are declaring the shape by creating an input object here, and we are giving the batch size as none, and then in that case we are able to get the model summary, because the weights can be defined because the shape of the input is known in this particular case. Okay, So now after this we can see the model layers. And simple alternatives is to pass an input shape argument to the first layer. So rather than creating the input object separately, we can also pass it to the first layer itself. So we get the same result. There is no difference as such. Okay. Now coming to the functional API. So let's say we wanted to create a model like this starting with a 784. So let's just quickly import the libraries and then let's get into the discussion. So let's say we wanted to create this model like input, then 2 dense layers and 1 output layer with a softmax activation. So in the functional API, what we do is actually we create this keras.input here, and it could be like this also. It could be an image of this particular shape, like 32 pixels by 32 pixels into 3 channels. It could be anything, and then we can inspect the input shape and the input data type. And then what we do, we create a layer and pass this input to it. Okay, so this is the functional API, right? We create a layer, pass the input to it. This inputs that we had created earlier, that is what is being passed here. Then what we do, we had got an output X here. Now that X we are passing as an input to the next layer, and the output of this particular layer we are passing it to another layer, which is our final layer, dense layer. Okay, so we started with an input and finally landed with the outputs here. So what we do, how do we create a model? Keras.model, we declare our inputs and outputs and give it a name. Okay. So model is created, and then we can check the model summary here. So we get all this 784, 64, 64, 10. Our model is created. So in this particular case, it just looks like a sequential because we have just we have created in that way, but then we can create non-linear models also, and we will see those just in a bit. Okay, we can plot it also, the model that we created. So this is how it is going to look like. If we want to, if we give this show shapes is equal to true flag in the same call, then it is going to show the input and output shapes also. Okay, so this is useful if you have complex models. If you just want to check on a few things, this is a very useful thing to have. Okay, now how does the training and evaluation work? Like, we discuss the sequential models and we know how does it work from data perspective, how do we feed in the data, etc. How do we define certain things in that model. So let's see how we do it for the functional API also. So we are just loading this data set, we are splitting it into train and test here, we are compiling a model here by giving the loss optimizer and the metrics, and then we are fitting the model and then we evaluate. That's pretty much it. Okay, so this looks pretty straightforward. So far it looks almost like a sequential model. Apart from that, we can also save a model. Okay, so model has this method called as save also, and we can load the model also. So after saving, let's say if we deleted a model and if you wanted to load it back, we can use this particular call here. Now let's discuss the models with the multiple inputs and outputs. So here we are giving like 3 inputs to a model: title, text body and tags. Okay, and there are 2 outputs. So the output is like a priority score, which is between 0 and 1, So it's a numeric output, and then we have a department that should handle the ticket, so which is like a classification output. Okay, so before I get in the code here, let's check on the diagram here, get a model plot here. So there are two inputs here, title input and a body input. This is our third input, tags input. Now what we are doing is actually we are taking this title input and then processing it through an embedding layer. Body input we are processing through another embedding layer, and then we are processing these output through the LSTM layers. Okay, and then we are combining the outputs of this in LSTM layer, second LSTM layer, and the third input to create a single output over here, which is of the shape of none 172. And then we are using this particular output to get two final outputs, which is like 0 to 1 priority and a department to which the ticket should be routed to. Okay, so let us not worry about the LSTM layers, etc., embedding layers, etc. That is something that we will discuss in the later videos. The key thing to understand here is we can have multiple inputs. So in this case we have 3 inputs. We can process those inputs through separate stack of layers. We can merge those inputs, and we can also get multiple outputs, okay, using the functional API. So it's a very powerful thing to have in our arsenal. Okay, now let's quickly have a look at the code over here. So we define this Keras input, all the inputs as Keras inputs. Okay, and we are giving it a shape. Body input shape is none because these are the variable strings, so we cannot give any input to it, any shape to it as such. And in case of tags, it is shape, number of tags, and then we pass those title inputs and body inputs to the embedding layers, and these two outputs and the third output. So these outputs are basically passed to the LSTM layer. Title, there is a LSTM layer for title, there is an LSTM layer for the body, and then we combine the output of these LSTM layers and the third input over here. So we are giving a list of the inputs here, and then we are defining these two outputs here, priority prediction and department prediction, just as dense layers, and we are using this final output X here as an input to both of these layers, X and X here. Okay, and then finally when we after declaring all this hierarchy of the layers, we just declare the model by giving the list of the inputs here and the list of the outputs. So fairly straightforward, but at the same time very powerful. Okay, so that's pretty much about the functional API, and I mean beyond this it is a normal kind of a loop here, training loop here. The only thing that I would like to kind of show here is we can also declare two different losses. So we are declaring the priority and different losses for the priority and the department, which are these two outputs here. So we are using two different loss functions here. Okay, and then what we do is actually we generate the random data and train our model. That's pretty much about the functional API, right? So it's pretty simple to use but very powerful, and there is least amount of modification in the model.compile or model.fit even if we are using the functional API. Okay, now let's quickly discuss the built-in methods using an example. So let's quickly import the libraries here. So we'll take a look at model.fit, evaluate and predict. So what we are going to do, we are going to be creating a model here using a functional API, as you can see here. And then we are going to create a dataset using the Keras dot dataset. We are loading the MNIST, and then we split it. We reshape, because their images, right, 28 by 28, so they are reshaped as 784 and 60,000 samples for training, and then 10,000 we are retaining for the testing. So we are done with this. Then compile. So we are using the optimizer, loss function, and the metrics here. And we're using the fit, model.fit. We are basically capturing the metrics over the epochs. We are giving the data, we are giving the labels, we are defining the batch sizes, epochs, validation data. So we did the split here, validation, right? We split the training into the training and the validation here, and that's what we are using here. So very simple, right? So when we are using this model.fit, pretty much everything, like we just have to get our data, uh, tell the batch sizes, tell the epochs, and our training loop is all set, and even the validation of the model is taken care of for us. So at every epoch you can see that we are getting a log of loss, accuracy, validation loss, and validation accuracy for each epoch over here. And we can also access what is there in the history, not history. So you will see that loss, accuracy, validation loss, validation accuracy, they're all part of this history, right? And why 5? Because we basically used 5 epochs, right? Next one, so we trained the model, now we have to evaluate it, right? And for that we use the test data here. So we got the evaluation results here, and we are predicting also. So we are giving a new piece of data here, and we are predicting the results on the trained model. Okay, so that's pretty much about the built-in methods. So 4 built-in methods: compile, fit, evaluate, and predict. Okay, and that covers practically all the functionality that we will require at least 90 to 95% of the time, and that is all supported out of the box by Keras API, and that is the reason why Keras is so popular. Okay, now let's come to how do we customize this model.fit. Okay, I'm just importing the libraries once again over here. So what we do here, we create a custom model class, we extend this keras.model, and then we define this train underscore step method. Okay, now this is the method that is going to be called by the model when we call model.fit. Okay, and within this method we can do whatever changes we wanted to have, and as we discussed earlier, we have access to the trainable variables as self.trainable variables. We have access to the loss function as self.compile loss, self.optimizer, self.compile metrics. All these things are available for us. Okay, coming to the training loop from scratch. So let's say we define a model here. Sorry, I think we'll have to import the TensorFlow here. So we are going to get an error. Re-execute. Still not imported. Check out. Okay, so that we define our optimizer and the loss function here. We define the batch size, and then we are getting the data from the MNIST and the data set. We are doing the reshaping and the splitting here, and then we are preparing the data. So see, we'll have to define our own batches here, right? And that is what we are doing through these tensor slices. We are shuffling, so everything that was happening in the fit, we'll have to do ourselves. We'll have to create the validation data sets also, and we are using this from tensor slices method to create a validation data set over here. So that part is done, and then what we have to do, we have to set up the for loop, right? So this outer loop is for the epochs. Within each epoch, we have to get the batches of the data from our data set, and then we do the loss calculation under gradient tape. Okay, and so we calculate the logits by passing the input to the model, and then we calculate a loss by giving the actual the predicted one and the actuals, and then we calculate the gradient, and then we apply the gradient, okay, using the optimizer dot apply gradients, and then we log the metrics here. Okay, so we have written the whole training loop ourselves. So just compare it with the model.fit. We have to take care of batching the data. You have to take care of splitting the data, batching the data, fetching the data. All that code we'll have to write for ourselves, right? But if there is a need for it, we'll have to do for it, but just make sure that there is actual need for it. Otherwise it's better to stick to model.fit. Okay, that's pretty much we have for this particular session, folks. So let's go to our summary. Let me quickly take you to the summary. So this is a session 6 summary. So what we have discussed, what is Keras and why Keras is useful, right? So Keras is basically high level TensorFlow 2 API, and it's it is basically designed to reduce the number of operations and number of steps that we actually require in a machine learning workflow, and the common scenarios are already taken care of, and it is also possible to extend it very easily, right? And Keras offers us two different ways to create the models. One is a sequential model, another is a functional API. Sequential may be useful for the simple kind of architectures. Functional APIs if you have multiple inputs, outputs, if you want to build a nonlinear topology models, functional API is the way to go. And then Keras model offers us a lot of built-in methods, so which really saves us a lot of code when we are creating the machine learning workflow. So we have methods starting from compile, then we have fit, then we have evaluate, predict. We also have callbacks, right? So using all these methods, we can create our machine learning workflow very quickly. If necessary, if we are not able to satisfy all our requirement using the built-in methods, then we can extend also. That means we can override the train underscore step method and write our own code within that method, and that is what is going to get called when we call the dot fit method. Okay, and we can also write the training loop from scratch totally. So essentially Keras allows us to go as deep as we want to. At the same time, it basically helps us to keep the amount of the effort minimal. Okay, so that's a very useful thing. Okay, so with this we come to a conclusion for the session 6. So as usual, if you have any comments, any suggestions, anything that you want me to make videos on, please let me know. And thank you so much once again for listening to the video.